to YouTube. YouTube has closed caption. YouTube, you can speed up the video or slow down the video. They have a lot of tools for people
To
who
YouTube.
need
YouTube
special
has
access. So that's why we'll do it there. Anyway, welcome, YouTube family. My name is Stalin Acosta. I'm going to be your tour guide tonight. And we do have a special tour. A couple of friends of mine, and we're going to have a in-person bus tour in New York. Can you imagine all of us in a bus riding around Manhattan? Yeah, that's the plan. Saturday, April the 19th. The trip costs $99. It's about 8 hours long. We're going to be making stops, hop on, hop off. We're going to eat lunch together. Hey, even maybe breakfast together. But the point of this visit is to talk about the history of New York City and its connection to Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a fascinating tour that connects the time that we were in New York, the scenes that you're going to see on this trip, and how this can fortify your faith. So again, the name of the tour is called Legacy because Jehovah's Witnesses have been in New York for over 100 years. We're going to be in a literal bus driving around. Everyone is a Jehovah's Witness, and you could imagine eating and riding together. We're going to have a good time. But how can we start this tour? Well, how about if I tell you that New York City was the capital of the United States from 1789 to 1790? Did you know that? Did you know that New York City is considered the most historic site in the United States? Some people call it the birthplace of modern democracy. Yes, our founding fathers were in New York for the first presidential inauguration, which took place in 1789. And we're going to go to the place where George Washington used to worship, and probably the place where he learned that God had a name. And we will show you that, and you will be able to see that with your own eyes. So, New York is a place where many things were first. If you look at the screen, you see the United Nations, you see Grand Central Terminal, you see JFK, the Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building. There is so much to see in New York that simply there isn't enough time to cover all of it. But in 8 hours, we're going to show you a few things for you to take home and to share with the friends. First and foremost, why is it called New York? Well, guess what? The Dutch were the first one to arrive here at the city. And they noticed that the Native American used to call the island Manhattan. In 1626, the Dutch decided we're going to change the name and we're going to call it New Amsterdam because it is connected to the Dutch. Later, the British took over the island from the Dutch and they named it after the Duke of York and they call it New York. If you travel to certain areas of Manhattan, you're going to notice that certain areas still have the name Amsterdam in connection to the Dutch history. Right now, you're seeing an actual record manuscript of the transaction that used to take place in New York City in regards to slavery. You're gonna actually gonna see a wall where part of the city live on one end and the other part of the city live on the other end. And that's where the name Wall Street comes from. You see, in 1730, New York had more slaves than any other city in the colonies except for Charleston, South Carolina. Of course, New York abolished slavery in 1827. It is refreshing that we slave for God, and the reward for that is everlasting life. We are happy to be slave to the true God. What a contrast between how the world sees slavery and the way we see it. That was just a little introduction about New York. The actual tour begins at Grand Central Terminal. And the reason why they call it Grand Central is because it is a grand terminal. It has so many tracks and so many trains finish there. And with that location, we'll be talking about some of the prophecies about Daniel and how they fulfill. And we can see the fulfillment here in Grand Central. And I'll be showing you a little picture about that. Also, we're going to make a stop, a hop on, hop off at the United Nations. We're going to see how, for about less than 100 years, both Bethel and the United Nations were separated by a river. So you have the earthly part of Jehovah's organization in Brooklyn and Satan earthly organization on the other side with the United Nations. So it's going to be an amazing tour. And you're going to have a fantastic view of the river. After the United Nations, we're going to go to the World Trade Center and we're going to see the significance of the 9/11 memorial, the things that took place there. And then we're going to end with the, um, what would you call that? The modern day history of Jehovah's Witnesses in Brooklyn. We're going to be on the other side and you're going to see a fantastic view of Manhattan. If you're joining tonight and you never receive an email that the Greece tour Experience Paul Ministry has been rescheduled to tomorrow at 9 p.m., that's the reason. This is the reason why the tour was rescheduled so that we can present this tour about New York City. If you want to see the Greece tour, please come back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Anyway, let's begin with our first stop, Grand Central Terminal. It is truly impressive that a station this big with over 100 years is a place where millions of people pass by through here on a daily basis. Yes, the picture shows you that it's a beautiful place, but when you're there, it's a special feeling, completely something you can never imagine. A little unknown fact is the fact that Grand Central Terminal was one of the few pilot place where they started what today we call public witnessing or special public witnessing. And you can see that at the website and related to our history. Grand Central Terminal has many hidden secrets, and we're going to be sharing them with you. We're going to see the architectural marvel when we go to the Whisper Gallery, in which you can whisper on one side of the gallery, and because of the acoustic, you can hear what the other person is saying on the other side. You're going to see the historical significance of this transportation hub that has been running since 1913, over 100 years of age. And once you're there, we're going to show you the link to Daniel's prophecy and how this place will help us a great deal. The Bible talked about an eighth king, and our publications have pointed that the eighth king will be the United Nations. Standing in front of the United Nations, you're going to see the global impact that the organization have, the future implications that they have with the new world order, and you're going to see its post-World War II historical influence. And we're going to see how Bible prophecy is very close to being fulfilled, is very close to having that special power, to have the entire world connected by this. When we look at the Bible and we ask ourselves, when did this happen? When did the United Nations will become the eighth king? There are many Bible texts, and we're planning to consider some of them with you, friends, when we are there. And I can give you some hints. Some of them is Revelation chapter 17, verse 8 and verse 11. And we're going to share others while we're standing there so that you can see Bible prophecy being fulfilled in its entirety. One text that I would like to share with you, because you're going to see it there at the United Nations, is the text that they have it printed on a wall. May I get a reader, please, for Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4? Raise your hand and I will open your microphone. Let's ask Lori.
It says he will render judgment among the nations and set matters straight respecting many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning shears. Nation will not lift up sword against nation, nor will they learn war anymore.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, friends, that for many years, that text was displayed at the United Nations for many years, as you can see on the picture. Of course, they have shortened the text. They don't display it. And now they give credit as to where they got the text from. You're going to see Bible prophecy being fulfilled in more ways than one, but you're going to see it, before your eyes. I asked to please read Revelation chapter 17, verse 8 and 9. And this text allows us to see what are two of the most amazing words in biblical prophecy. Can anybody help me read Revelation chapter 17, verse 8 and 11? And we're going
Excuse
to
me,
allow.
brother. Are you showing pictures while you talking?
Yes.
I'm not seeing any pictures here.
Okay. You may have, uh, you may be in gallery and you may need to change it to speaker. Is anybody else having that issue? Okay, Cherie Brown, she says she sees the picture. Is that Ginger that is
Yeah,
not?
no, I can't raise my hand. I don't know why. The electronic hand.
Okay,
I can put it on chat, but I can't put it on my name on there.
okay, okay. Let's ask Sister Johnson, Jojo Johnson, to help us read this text.
It says, "The wild beast that you saw was, but is not, and yet is about to ascend out of the abyss, and it is to go off into destruction. And the inhabitants of the earth, those whose names have not been written in the scroll of life from the founding of the world, will be amazed when they see how the wild beast was, but is not, and yet will be present. And the wild beast that was, but is not, it is also an eighth king, but it springs from the seven, and it goes off into destruction."
There you go. What are the famous two words? Eighth king. Does anybody here know the name of the United Nations before World War One? Excuse me, before World War Two? Does
Illegal.
anybody? Let's call Rosa.
The League of Nations.
The League of Nations. Yes, and there were only 63 members back then, but the United States was not part of that League of Nations. But now the United States with England are part of the United Nations. And friends, seeing the fulfillment of that eight king will become very real once you're standing there in front of the United Nations as a group. After the United Nations, we're going to go to the World Trade Center and 9/11 Memorial. You will be able to see the day that changed everything. That is September 11th of the year 2001. We're going to be walking through the memorial. We're going to be looking at where the buildings used to be. But the best of all, we're going to see the fulfillment of the beast of two horns and that how that became fulfilled. The September 11 monument is in the same location as where the old World Trade Towers used to be, the Twin Towers. This memorial pays tribute to the 2,983 people that were killed on the terrorist attack in the year 2001 and in the year 1993. The original World Trade Center was a large complex of 7 buildings in the financial district of Lower Manhattan. And now you're going to see it together. So it's going to be fantastic to be walking together, talking about what exactly does it mean to have freedom. We're going to be talking about the Freedom Tower. We're going to be talking about the Statue of Liberty and all this, the most expensive transportation hub ever existed here in the United States. We're going to show you where one of our brothers actually died of the 7/11 attack, and how Jehovah has not forgotten anyone who have passed away. We're going to show you that. Friends, it is called the Freedom Tower because it highlights the year of independence, 1776, but it's also the year that the tablet that the Statue of Liberty had on his hand. I don't know if you can read Roman numbers, but right there it says 1776. And that's the height of the Freedom Tower, 76 feet, or the equivalent of 541 meters. But what's next to the Freedom Tower is St. Paul Chapel. St. Paul Chapel is the only colonial building actually standing right now in that area. That building survived the 1776 fire, and it also survived having the Twin Towers collapse and not doing any damage to it. There are different theories as to why this didn't happen, or something that is protecting it. We're not suspicious, but this place has Jehovah's name, or the Tetragrammaton, in 2 places way high in the altar. As I mentioned earlier in the tour, this was the place that was used to inaugurate the first president of the United States. And this is also the place where he used to come to worship. It's not an active church or a chapel. Right now, it's like a museum. But now we can clearly see that George Washington knew the divine name. He probably used it. And we have evidence in a letter that he wrote to the Jewish congregation in Savannah, Georgia, shortly after he became president, where he reassured them of religious liberty and wished them the temporary and spiritual blessing of those whose God is Jehovah. Truly, truly amazing. So this place not only is the oldest surviving church in Manhattan, according to secular sources, miraculously survived the 9/11 attack, and there's many hidden historical treasures inside, and it's completely free, and it's right next to the 9/11 memorial. I talked to you briefly about a wall that separated slaves from non-slave, and that's where the term Wall Street comes from. And many of you know about Wall Street because of stocks But do you know that there are links to the photodrama of creation from Wall Street? Yes, there are many connections that started in this area. For example, take a look at this. Can anybody help me read this "Did you know" section? Claudine, please.
It says, "What is Washington doing here? His hand is on the Bible. This statue depicts the moment of his inauguration as first president of the United States in 1789. In addition of putting his hand, Washington kissed the Bible at the end of the inauguration. His appreciation for the Bible created a tolerant and stable place for Bethel headquarters and the preaching work today."
Ah, okay. So this is not an American religion. It's a place of stable tolerance for us to do the preaching work. So it was not surprising why Jehovah's Witnesses would relocate from Allegheny, Pennsylvania to Brooklyn, a place that at that time had the largest number of churches and newspapers than any other part of the country. In Brooklyn, you probably know there are picture perfect opportunities. They're going to be culinary delights, but the historical significance, that's what we're going to be there for. We're going to see where the previous branch of Jehovah's Witness, the headquarters of Jehovah's Witness, was located, the history of the buildings, and how the organization got that building. And right next to the building, we're going to see the Brooklyn Bridge. Can anybody help me read the "you know" about Brooklyn? Let's ask Ginger, who has been wanting to read. Ginger.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me enlarge it. At first, people were afraid to cross it. To prove its strength, a circus made 21 elephants walk across it in 1884. Since then, it has been a New York icon.
There you go. So in order to build trust, what did they do? They asked 21 elephants to walk around the bridge. You're going to see it. Some of you may choose to cross it. It's a fantastic opportunity to see Manhattan, to see Brooklyn, and the world-changing event that took place in Brooklyn. The Global Proclamation Campaign origin and how this historical site is part of our history. Because of a logistic headache and time, it is impossible to see all those places and also go to the Statue of Liberty. You may see it from a distance, especially when we are at the 9/11 Memorial or when we are in Brooklyn. If we have binoculars, you can actually see the Statue of Liberty. And the Statue of Liberty, again, is connected to the Freedom Tower that I showed you earlier, and also the idea of how this nation was built. Remember, tolerance and stability. The Statue of Liberty is a gift by the French government to the newly created nation of the United States. And there is a poem that I would like to read to you so that you can understand how much the country has changed since its beginning. Almost 100 years ago, they used to say, "Give me your tired, give me your poor, your hurdle masses yearning to breathe free, the wrecked refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." That was an 1883 poem titled "The New Colossal at the Statue of Liberty." This is a sonnet by Emma Lazarus, and she dedicated this poem to the Statue of Liberty. Today, the Statue of Liberty is about 140 years old, but boy, does she look good for 140. but there's a history behind the statue. You see, she's not as innocent as she pretended to be. The Statue of Liberty is just another face for Isis from Egypt. If you have been, if you have taken any of our tours, you will remember that in the temple of Dendor, the Egyptian goddess Isis, the one who was humiliated by having boils on the skin, is the one that you see here on the screen. But what's interesting, friends, if you go to Babylon, her name is not Isis. Her name is Ishtar. Yes, same God, different name. But the Greek will conquer Babylon and they will change her name. And now her name is Aphrodite. Finally, the Romans will conquer the Greeks and they will name it Libertas, the Latin word for freedom. However, strong voices are currently being heard against U.S. policy on immigration. We don't take part on that, but it is funny that the reason this statue is here is totally the opposite of what's taking place right now. And if you dig deeper, you're going to see the assortment of Statue of Liberties throughout history. Some are hidden in plain sight when you are innocently watching a movie. What's sad about all of this is the incarnation of Isis and Ishtar in our modern time. Maybe the French designer was inspired by those previous goddess. Anyway, come with us on the strip. We're going to have fantastic food like hot dogs, pretzel, New York pizza. But you're going to be in an area surrounded by brothers and sisters to enjoy the scenery and to also learn about history and to see how that history connects with what we know today. So, do you have any questions about the bus tour? I know some of you may not be able to travel, but maybe some of you can come and we can meet each other in New York City.
This is Brother Mills. I have a comment to make.
Go ahead.
I took the